We're very pleased to have with us today several distinguished visitors from the Middle East, North Africa region who are here representing their countries on the commercial side. And I'll really turn most of the time over to Kurt Silvers, who is Executive Vice President of the National U.S. Arab Chamber of Commerce. And that's the organization that is sponsoring the group coming out to Utah. So yesterday they spent the day up in Salt Lake where they met people from the business community and had a chance to talk to them. And so what we thought we would do today is I'll let Mr. Silvers introduce everyone, and then they'll have some prepared remarks about some of the business opportunities in their countries. And then at the end, we'll have about a half an hour or so that will just be open where you can come up and talk to any one of them, whichever country you're interested in particular. So rather than having an open Q&A, we'll kind of let you focus on individuals that you have specific questions you'd like to ask to or other issues that you're concerned about. So let me turn the time over to Kurt Silvers, and I'll let him introduce our group.
Thank you, Lee, very much, and thanks everyone for your wonderful reception here at BYU. I think it's been one of the highlights of our visit to Salt Lake City, and we really appreciate being here today. I'll take just a moment maybe to set the stage and give just a brief maybe general overview of the trade situation between the United States and the Arab world generally, and then each of our other members of the delegation could talk more specifically about their countries. I am Kurt Silvers, Executive Vice President at the National U.S. Arab Chamber of Commerce, and we're an organization that's over 40 years old and dedicated to expanding trade between the United States and the Arab world. We do a lot of activities such as this roadshow mission and other kind of trade missions. We have a trade mission for U.S. businesses coming up in June to Tunisia and Libya, for example. But another thing that we do is we do a lot of research and publications of materials. And I just wanted to give a little quick overview of some of the findings that we're going to have coming out in our U.S. Middle East Trade Economic Outlook to the year 2015. That should be coming out in just a few weeks. We have a few of our current publications over here, and if you're interested, that looks out to the year 2013, so it's hardly out of date, but we will have a new one coming out soon. And if we may not have enough, but Cynthia Douglas here sitting in front is NUSAC's representative here in Salt Lake on the ground. And so if you want additional information, Cynthia is a very good contact for you. I just want to say that, despite some of the political and economic turmoil and challenges that we've seen facing the region over the last year and a few months, the trade outlook between the United States and the Arab world remains very, very positive, very, very good. We find that looking toward the year 15, we see U.S. exports to the region growing to $164 billion by the year 2015, and that's up from $84 billion last year. This puts U.S. trade with the Arab world on track to reach President Obama's goal of doubling exports by the year 2015, and gives the U.S. a strong market share in the region, which we predict their total demand in 2015 will be $1.3 trillion by the year 2015. I just think that goes to demonstrate that despite some of the challenges, the trade opportunities for American businesses in the region remain very, very strong. I'm glad to see some familiar faces here today from our session yesterday. And I just want to say that, the reception that we've received here in Salt Lake area has been tremendous overall. I'll turn to our panelists now and just give a short introduction of people. Next to me is Rose Sager. Rose is the trade representative for the Kingdom of Bahrain. She's based in New York City. She was born and raised in Bahrain, but emigrated to the U.S., where she received her master's degree in mathematics and business from the City University of New York, following which she had a successful career in finance and insurance and the airline industries. She joined the Bahrain Economic Office in 2006, where her primary responsibility is to facilitate and promote the U.S.-Bahrain Free Trade Agreement. Next to her is Dr. Ashraf Ezzaldine. He's Minister Plenipotentiary and head of the Egyptian Economic and Commercial Office in Washington, D.C. Prior to that posting, he held the equivalent post in New York. He is the senior representative for Egypt in the United States, responsible for promoting foreign investment and trade with Egypt. He's also served in London, Moscow, Beirut, and held many positions in Cairo of responsibility. Ashraf graduated from the University of Cairo with a degree in agricultural economics. Next to Ashraf is Shireen Said. Shireen's the commercial attaché from the Sultan of Oman since 2009. And again, she is, one of her primary responsibilities is to oversee operations of the U.S.-Oman Free Trade Agreement. Prior to this appointment, Shireen served at the Public Authority for Investment Promotion and Export Development in Oman and worked at the Central Bank of Oman and PricewaterhouseCoopers. She received her bachelor's degree from American International University in London, a diploma in banking studies from the Financial Studies University in Muscat, and an executive master's degree in business administration from the University of London. Next to Shireen is Abdsalam Zefri. Mr. Zefri serves as economic counselor for the Kingdom of Morocco. He's responsible for overseeing the workings of the U.S.-Morocco Free Trade Agreement. And prior to serving in that position, Abdsalam served in Russia and in Japan, as well as numerous positions with international economic organizations in Rabat. Abdsalam graduated from the Moroccan School of Public Administration. And last but not least, on the end is my friend Adel Rimili. He's the economic commercial counselor for the Embassy of Tunisia since last year. Adel joined the Tunisian Foreign Service in 1997 and has served in posts covering sub-Saharan Africa, including in Khartoum, Sudan. Adel holds a bachelor's degree in law and a master's degree in civil law from the University of Tunis. He also holds numerous diplomas from European, Asian, and multilateral institutions, such as the École Nationale d'Administration in Paris, the Beijing Diplomatic School, and the UN Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. We're excited to have this opportunity to be here, and I will turn the floor over to our panelists. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for hosting us and for allowing us to be here. I represent the Kingdom of Bahrain, and it's a small island. It's actually one of the smallest of the Gulf countries. It is comprised of 33 islands, less during high tide. And that is true, by the way. You just won't see it. It's located just off the eastern coast of Saudi Arabia, and it's connected to Saudi Arabia with a causeway. Because we are such an open, tolerant, and fun country, we get tourism every weekend from Saudi Arabia, just for the freedom in itself. It's a safe, secure, friendly island with a high standard of living. And we have a very well-renowned financial structure that is transparent and well-developed, and it follows the U.S. system. We are also members of the intellectual property laws. We're up to date with that, so anytime we have businesses coming in, they are protected with copyright and patent laws, as well as being in a financially regulated environment. The Heritage Foundation named Bahrain as the 13th freest economy in the world out of 179, and number 1 in the Middle East, North Africa region. That says a lot for the small little island of Bahrain. So really what we lack for in size, we more than make up for in financial and business opportunities. We have the most diversified economy in the Gulf region, because 40 years ago they realized oil is not going to last forever. So they started looking at diversification. So it became the financial gateway to the Middle East, financial capital of the Middle East. That's what our nickname is. We're also very green conscious. We have a World Trade Center building that gets 20% of its power from wind turbine engines. So if you ever Google Bahrain, one of the iconic pictures that will come up is a World Trade Center building. And that's the first in the Middle East that's green based. Our location being between Saudi Arabia and Qatar is strategic. We have access to air, sea, and land transportation. And the causeway to Qatar is being built right now. It should be ready in about 2.5 years. So for those that are business-minded, Qatar is going to host the World Cup in about 10 years. Having a business based in Bahrain and serving Qatar's needs, beginning now, today, is just a very wise decision, because Bahrain has a free trade agreement with the U.S. So any U.S.-made services or products distributed out of Bahrain, you can serve the entire Gulf countries, the GCC countries, which is Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and the UAE. You can sell to them and distribute to them on the same tax-free basis. So not only will you be saving in tax-wise, you're also being protected with the intellectual property laws. So just think of this as a brand new opportunity. You can serve Qatar's needs for World Cup from Bahrain. You can have housing, temporary housing, or hotels or restaurants to serve the influx of tourism and businesses going to Qatar. And of course, since we're connected to Saudi Arabia, that is your largest consumer. Our population is about 1 million, just over 1 million, half of which are expats. And English is widely spoken. And in fact, I would say 99% of the population is bilingual. And English is the language used in business. The Bahraini dinar is pegged to the US dollar. So if you're thinking of doing business there, at least that's one thing you don't have to worry about. There's no exchange risk. It is very competitive in cost of living compared to the surrounding area. So housing is about half of that what it would be in UAE. Water is subsidized, electricity is subsidized, and so is warehouse space. The government is trying very hard to welcome foreign direct investment and offers many incentives. One popular one is a fund called Tamkeen. It's a labor fund. And any business who wishes to establish a base there, Tamkeen will actually subsidize the salaries of local employees if you choose to hire locals. They will also pay for the training of local employees. And they will also subsidize your warehouse space or office space. So if you have any ideas or if you wish to have a business partnership, Tamkeen is a great place to start. We have an economic development board that also welcomes businesses and will do the hand-holding from A to Z. So you come in, you need information, you need local partners, you need introductions. They actually set up everything for you. They will help in getting a license, and they will also follow up with you after you're established in Bahrain. They're not going to just leave you there. We also have a Bahrain Investor Center. That is a one-stop shop where you'd come in, apply for a license for your business. It takes about 5 business days, and you get a company registration number. From there, you can go to the next desk in the same office and apply for a visa, for your work visa, for your employee's visa. Look into bank accounts for your business, personal. And then there's another desk that will help you with housing and office space. So we call it the red carpet treatment, not red tape. And Bahrain actually is a very friendly, hospitable place. People will welcome you. Once you're there about 2-3 days, you'll see that you get invited from one place to another to another. The universities have a great exchange program. And we're going to discuss some kind of a program with the school too, hopefully, because it would be great to have interaction there. And we're also home of Formula One. It just took place a few weeks ago. And that brings in, of course, a lot of business. So when you think of business in the Middle East and a gateway to the entire Gulf region, think of Bahrain. It's not only welcoming, it's also tax-free in most cases. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ashraf Azzdin. I'm the Commercial Consul of Egypt. And I will start about maybe all of you know some information about Egypt and what has happened last year in Egypt. What has happened in Egypt last year make for the economy some damage. We can see here the economy lost approximately $40 billion in outputting during the uprising in 2011. The reserve down $22 billion. Modest growth expected in 2012, 2.7%. Rating cuts, unemployment is in double digits, and there are 650,000 new job seekers each year. But till now, there is no worry about these figures at all. Egypt can support and can solve all these problems. No shipment was delayed last year to export from Egypt to the USA, and all the commitment last year also was exported to the USA all this year, and also the exporting was raised last year with 2.7 in the normal goods to the USA. In the situation, because a lot of you asking about the situation in Egypt now, the situation in Egypt now, we have already a parliament elections already done, and the two parliaments in Egypt is already working, and the presidential elections will be within 2 months, and also the new constitutions will be within 2 months also. They will ask me also about the brotherhood, which is now in the rules of Egypt, but we will talk about that after we talk about the Egyptian macroeconomic indicators in 2011. GDP in Egypt now is $232 billion, growth with 1.2% last year. Labor force in Egypt, 27 million. Unemployment rate, 12%. Inflation rate, 13%. Exports from Egypt was $28 billion. Imports was $57 billion. Egypt has a free trade area with EU countries, 27 countries, and also they have free trade area with GAFTA, Arab country, 22 countries. Also have free trade area with COMESA, 24 countries in Africa, and also they have free trade area with 3 countries in EFTA, and several bilateral trade agreements with all. And also they have quiz with Egypt, with USA and Israel. Quiz means qualified industrial zone, which if we import from Israel with 10%, then we can export to the USA without any custom duty. When we talk about the trade between Egypt and USA, we are talking about $8.2 billion in two ways. Goods imported from the USA total $6 billion, and exported from Egypt approximately $2 billion. In 2011, USA investment in Egypt reached $11.7 billion, making the highest US investment in Africa, Arab country, and the second in the Middle East after Israel. Egypt also export to the USA goods. In 2011, it is decreased with 7.6% than 2010. In fact, it is the decrease here in not in the normal goods. The decrease was in the fuel and in petroleum products. But the other good was raised with approximately 5% or something like that. The five largest import category in 2011 were textile, apparel, approximately $1 billion from Egypt to the USA, mineral fuel, 356 million, fertilizers, 263 million. Egypt at the same time imports from the USA with $6 billion. Egypt was the United States' 39th largest goods export market in 2011. And USA goods export to Egypt were down with 9.5%, also for the products of fuel and mineral products. The top export category in 2011 was aircraft, approximately $500 million, cereals, $1.5 billion, mineral fuel and oil, $597 million, and iron and steel, $400 million. The main, of course, export from Egypt was textile. It is approximately half of the Egyptian exporter to the USA. Total Egyptian home textile export to the US was in 2010 153 million, increased to 156 million in 2011. This is some numbers about the Egyptian export to the USA. When we talk also about the Egyptian export ranking in the US market, we are talking about the fourth largest supplier of blue denim apparel to the USA, the seventh largest supplier of cotton pants, the eighth largest supplier of man-made fiber sweaters, and the second largest supplier of man-made floor covering. We are talking also about the investment between Egypt and USA. There is a lot of successful cooperation between our industry, but we have, comparing with Egypt, we are talking about 85 million people in Egypt, and the USA. This means we have to increase this number of trade and the investment from both sides. And that is what we are doing these years, but maybe the revolutions which have happened in Egypt is decrease, slowing, but didn't stop. We are talking about the investment environment in Egypt, investment fields. In Egypt also we encourage people to invest in 5 or 6 categories in Egypt: reclamation land, cultivation, and industry and development of industry zones, tourist investment, transportation, specialized service, and I will leave a copy from all these sectors to the Sensi, which can distribute it to all the people here, and also the guarantee of all the investment which will be in Egypt to all the company, which there is no company can be, companies or establishments shall not be nationalized or shall their property be confiscated. I will leave all of this with Sensi. She can distribute it after that. You want to ask about the brotherhood in Egypt and how they will affect the trade between Egypt or the economic. In my opinion, and what they already declare, there is nothing will be changed in this matter. The government in Egypt assure and the open market will still in Egypt. There is no change at all in our policy in this matter, and the respect of our all agreements with all the countries and all the companies respectful from the government itself and the guarantee from the government itself. And maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago, our Minister of Trade was here, and we make a lot of interview with the Ministry of Trade here, and the USTR, and all of them was in, and the Minister of Agriculture also. We solve a lot of problems, in fact, and the results of these visits shown last week, which some of the Egyptian products which can be prohibited to export to the USA was already permitted to export to the USA. And I expect within 2 months we can solve all of these problems. We can go to the question after my colleague will finish. Thank you very much. Yes.
Hello, it's a great pleasure to be here today, and I'd like to thank you all very much for your warm reception and kind hospitality. I'm Shireen Saeed, the Commercial Attaché of the Embassy of Oman. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about our economic development and the diversification plans, and then I'll go on to the investment climate in Oman and the investment opportunities. According to our constitution, our economy is based on justice and the principles of free economy. Our long-term development plan is known as the Vision 2020, and these are the objectives we plan to meet by the year 2020. The main components of this Vision 2020 is the development of human resources, which has always been accorded great priority in our development plans, the creation of a stable macroeconomic framework, encouraging the establishment of an effective and competitive private sector, and we're in the process of privatizing our privatizing government-owned entities, such as in power and water, telecom, the seaports, also providing appropriate conditions for the realization of economic diversification. So Oman was formerly the mainstay of our economy, but we're trying to diversify away from oil and towards the non-oil sector, and this includes tourism, IT, renewable energy, manufacturing, in particular petrochemicals, also fisheries. Another component of the Vision 2020 is enhancing the standard of living of our people and providing them with employment opportunities, which is why we are trying to encourage domestic investment in the private sector and also foreign investment in our private sectors. And also optimizing the use of our natural resources and geostrategic location. Natural resources are mainly oil and gas. We have about 20 billion barrels of oil, which will last for the next probably 20 years. And we have about 30 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. We're using now the oil and gas as feedstock for our petrochemicals industry, which is an emerging industry. Oman is very strategically located. It lies at the Gulf, at the mouth of the Gulf of Arabia, on the coast, and we have the Strait of Hormuz at the northern tip of Oman, and we share control of the Strait of Hormuz with Iran, and that's where 2/3 of the world's oil passes through. And for this purpose, we have two very large port developments in the north of Oman and in the south, which lie outside of the Strait of Hormuz, which means that the shipping lines, they can bypass the Strait of Hormuz, and also that there are lower insurance premiums. So that's the benefit of the ports. And adjacent to our ports, we have free trade zones, and they have a good package of incentives for foreign investors. I'll go into that later on. So according to our Vision 2020, we envisage that the contribution of oil and gas, which was 35% in 1995, would decrease to about 19% by 2020. And for our non-oil sector, which the contribution to GDP was about 65% in 1995, we envisage it to go up to 81% by 2020. Our Vision 2020 development strategy is implemented through a series of 5-year development plans. And the first few 5-year development plans, they focused on building the basic infrastructure and providing basic services and the infrastructure. I should mention that Oman is only about 40 years old, because 40 years ago we didn't have any, it was underdeveloped. We had only a few roads, a few hospitals, and now we have thousands of roads and flyovers and hospitals. So it's important to point that out. The current 5-year plan is the 8th 5-year plan. That's 2011 to 2015. And the targets for this 5-year plan is we'd like to have a GDP growth of 5% per annum. That's in real terms. Currently, in 2011, the real growth was about 3%, and it is projected to increase to 4% by 2012. The non-oil sectors are targeted to grow at about 10%. That's in nominal terms. Oil production currently stands about 900,000 barrels per day, and that's at we always have a conservative estimate for our pricing of oil. Here it says $59, but in reality, it's between $100 to $120 per barrel. But this is the $59 per barrel is the price that we use to on this basis we create our budget. So we budget with $59 per barrel, but in reality, of course, we get it's 100 and 120. So therefore, we always have a budget surplus. So yeah, the major projects that the government is undertaking, they're projects worth about $11.4 billion. And this is mainly in infrastructure, such as flyovers, dams, roads, power and water plants, education, health. Education and health has always been accorded a very high priority in our development plans. And then also we plan to create new employment opportunities for our youth. Also given, the Arab Spring, we've had some peaceful protests. This was mainly in the north of Oman, and so the youth, the unemployed youth, their concerns were really they wanted more employment opportunities and also more greater accountability of our cabinet ministers. Some of our ministers have been there for about 20 years, so you know. And His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said, he responded immediately and he addressed these issues. And we had a cabinet reshuffle, so about 11 ministers were dismissed. So we have now new ministers who are very dynamic, younger, and very motivated and ambitious. We have actually managed to create about 20,000 new jobs in the last year. This was mainly in the military, in the Royal Oman Police. And we hope that the private sector, we want to attract more investment to create more jobs. Also, His Majesty increased the minimum wage by 40%, so now it's about $520. To give you an idea of our ranking worldwide, Oman is the 43rd, holds the 43rd position among 141 countries. This is according to the World Economic Freedom Index, 2010. 57th position among 183 countries, and is according to the Doing Business Index, 2011, the World Bank. Second position among Arab countries, and 23rd position among 149 countries. This is according to the Global Peace Index of the Institute for Economics and Peace. The 34th position among 139 countries in the Global Competitiveness Index. This is of the World Economic Forum. And in this World Economic Forum Index, in our global IT ranking, Oman moved up from 50th to 41. And this is very important for us because we're in the middle of, we want to transform Oman to a knowledge-based economy, and we are implementing a national IT strategy and e-governance, and we want IT to play a very important role in our economic development. So I'm going to provide you now some statistics on our foreign direct investment. In 2006, it was about $5.7 billion, and by 2009, it reached $13 billion. If we look at it industry-wise, the main FDI was in oil and gas, followed by oil and gas, that's at 50%, so 50% of FDI was in oil and gas. About 15% was in manufacturing, and about 14% in financial services. And then, of course, there are other sectors. Country-wise, the United Kingdom is the largest investor in Oman. That's it. It's about 34% of FDI. United States represents about 20% of total FDI, and then United Arab Emirates represents about 15% of total FDI. The largest individual investor is Netherlands, the Royal Dutch Shell, and they own about 30% in our national government-owned oil company, and Petroleum Development Oman. So the Omani government owns 60%, and Royal Dutch Shell owns about 34%, and then we have some other shareholders. Okay. Now I'll move on to the investment environment. What are the main reasons why we feel that investors would be interested to invest in Oman? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, our strategic location, which is at the mouth of the Gulf of Arabia. Shipping lines, they can dock at our ports. They can bypass the Strait of Hormuz, which means lower insurance premiums. And also we lie in the middle of the east-west trade routes, which is of course very, for shipping lines, it's a very strategic place to, yeah. The lead times to Northern Europe and to the US, the East Coast, would be about 2 weeks for the shipping lines. And to Africa and the Indian subcontinent, it will only take a few days. We have a very stable economic framework. Our currency, the Omani Riyal, is linked to the US dollar. It's pegged to the US dollar, and that's at the rate of 2.6008. We have very low foreign debt levels. We have very low inflation rate as well. We have very comprehensive legal framework. We have very strong IPR laws. Oman joined the WTO in 2000, and because we joined the WTO later than our neighboring GCC countries, we took on a higher level of commitments. Also, we have very investor-friendly tax laws. Corporate tax is 12%, which is very low, and regionally, I mean, it's a very low rate. But under the Oman-US FTA, in our free zones, there is an exemption for the corporate tax, so you can have a tax holiday of between 10 to 25 years. We have very good infrastructure. The first 5-year development plans focus on providing the basic infrastructure. Now we're upgrading our infrastructure, so we're upgrading our ports so they have greater capacity. We're adding new airports. We're building a rail network. Also, we have institutions that support investors, such as one-stop shops in most of our free zones, and also at our Ministry of Commerce. We also have an investment promotion agency, and it's called the Public Authority for Investment Promotion and Export Development, which is the agency that I represent, which comes under our Ministry of Commerce. We have a good local, very skilled labor force. They're proficient in the English language. They have a good skill set. We have several vocational training institutes. Also, we believe in free trade, and we have open market policies. Customs duties is very low. As Oman is part of the GCC, the customs duty stands at 5%. This is a harmonized customs rate. That means that any good that enters the GCC country, any GCC country, there's a 5% customs duty, and then the product can move freely between member states, GCC countries. But under the Oman-US FTA, we have eliminated almost all duty rates. So it's practically zero duty rates. Some of the general incentives that we have for foreign investors is, as I mentioned, the tax exemption for up to between 10 to 25 years. And this is in strategic industries which are important for our economic development, such as manufacturing, mining, education, health, tourism, agriculture, and fisheries. We have very competitive utility rates, very low utility rates, no personal income tax, free repatriation of capital and profits, 100% foreign ownership, and this in particular under the Oman-US FTA, U.S. investors, they receive national treatment. And then also we have foreign ownership of land and property, but these are in certain areas known as, these are the integrated tourist complexes. So foreigners are allowed to own land within these, we refer to them as ITCs. I mentioned that Oman is a member of WTO since 2000. It's also a member of the GCC Common Market since 2008. It's also a member of the GAFTA, the Greater Arab Free Trade Area. It has a free trade agreement with the US and also with Singapore. But the free trade agreement with the US, we pursue that individually, bilaterally. But our FTA with Singapore was pursued collectively with other GCC countries. So under all these trade agreements, you have very low or no customs duty. We have several industrial estates in Oman, and they're spread throughout different regions. And we also have an IT park. And this IT park, we have several international companies such as HP, Microsoft, NCR, Oracle, Motorola, Siemens. and it has more than Notch Oasis has more than 22,000 meters squared of offices. Again, it has a similar set of incentives, such as 100% foreign ownership is allowed, high-speed internet access and other facilities and amenities, and no personal income tax, no foreign exchange controls, and also they have their own one-stop shop. One of our port developments, which is located in the north, is the Sohar Industrial Port Company. It's the main location for our petrochemicals industry. There are 3 industry clusters located there. We have petrochemicals such as polypropylene, and also we have chemicals such as methanol, aromatics, a fertilizer plant. We also have metals such as metal manufacturing plants such as aluminium, iron, and steel. And it's also we have logistics. We have different terminals there for general cargo, a container terminal, also bulk liquid terminal. Okay, and adjacent to the Sohar port, we have the Sohar Free Zone, we just established this recently. In the Sohar Free Zone, we would like to welcome firms which are further downstream from petrochemicals and metals, who would benefit from the synergy with the industry. Yeah, with the industries located in the port of Sohar. That would be in polypropylene, metals such as aluminium. So we plan to establish a plastics park and a steel cluster in the Sohar Free Zone. That's in the north. And in the south, adjacent to our port of Salalah, we have the Salalah Free Zone. And this is one of the largest ports, it was recently voted as one of the top 10 in the region in terms of facilities and incentives. It's in the South Free Zone. They're looking to attract investment in logistics, light and medium industries, distribution, trade, metal processing, assembly. Then we have in the central Oman, we have Dokom, which is an up-and-coming area, and there we plan to have 2 dry docks, ship repair facilities, fishing harbor, oil refinery, petrochemicals complex, etc. Our Oman railway network, it will be interconnected with the GCC railway, which will be a project of about $14 billion. It will go all the way from the north to south of Oman and linked with the GCC network. And the operation, it's planned by 2017. So we have a lot of opportunities for investment in plastics, tourism, metals, renewable energy, IT, marine, automotive, services, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals. So these are our targeted sectors for investment. Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention.
We finish? What I would be. We don't have enough time,
There's a couple of seconds.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for having us here. I'm Zefri Abdeslam from the Moroccan Embassy based in Washington, D.C. Morocco, as a North African country, has done lots of things during the last decade, so as to reform the social structure, economic structure, and political reforms as well have been taking place during this last decade. Sorry, thank you. Starting in the year 2000, after the accession of our young king, His Majesty Mohammed VI, We have been focusing on infrastructure, building highways, ports, airports, renewing roads, national roads. Later on, 2005, we brought a new plan to develop a human or social sector, which is named NDH, National Initiative for Human Development. In 2008, we had many reforms on economical plans. We had strategies and plans for agriculture, which is called Green Morocco. We embrace the green policy and protect the environment. We had emergence plan d'émergence in industry. We created free zones. We created industrial parks. Industrial parks for aeronautic, for automotive, for electronics, for it englobes all the industry, including electronics. Let's say we created then other agencies with the Moroccan ministries. We created the Mazen for the solar energy, Easy for the wind energy. We created the AMDI for for the promotion or development of foreign investments in Morocco. We created another agency with the Ministry of Agriculture, which is called ADA, Agence de Développement Agricole. It develops new projects in Morocco in agriculture. And later on, we had accompanying plans. The big projects for solar energy. That's Morocco had almost $90 billion. And wind energy as well. Accompany us the Saudi Arabia with $1 billion, United States $500 million, and other Gulf countries, and the World Bank as well. I wanted to talk about this solar energy projects in Morocco, but the time is very tight. I give another time we will. I know. I give to my neighbor and brother Tunisian. Thank you very much.
I think I have just a few minutes to tell you something about Tunisia. Tunisia is a Mediterranean country at the crossroad of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Tunisia's economy is a regional model and a platform vis-à-vis Europe, Africa, as I said, and the Maghreb. Tunisia has kept its leading position in Africa and the southern rim of the Mediterranean, according to the recent report on the Global Competitiveness 2011-2012, released by the World Economic Forum of Davos, and has been able to maintain a serene macroeconomic environment with a manageable debt level and a low budget deficit, according to the same report. What can I say other? Maybe Tunisia was ranked least corrupt in the Maghreb in 2011. And the World Bank ranked Tunisia as 46th in its doing business ranking in 2012, the highest in North Africa. We have a legal framework with the United States of America. Strong ties between the United States and Tunisia are built in part on good business relationships, including a trade and investment framework agreement, we call it TIFA, signed in 2002. U.S. foreign direct investment flows reached about 100 million in 2011. Not a lot, but it's good. and and have totaled 1.263 billion since 1994. Over 80 U.S. firms currently operating in Tunisia, which as of 2011 were creating 18,800 jobs, which is good, of course. Total U.S.-Tunisia trade for 2011 was 938 million. In 2011, U.S. export to Tunisia were 586.1 million, mainly parts of machinery, oil, seeds, and soybean oil. Tunisia's exports to the U.S. were 351.9 million, mainly olive oil and apparel. The market opportunities. Investors come to Tunisia because of relatively low cost skilled labor and the access Tunisia has to the EU and North African markets. In addition, an attractive government investment incentives package has drawn U.S. investors. In view of this, here are some best prospects for U.S. investment and exports. Investment opportunities and best prospects for U.S. investment: hydrocarbons, power generation, renewable energy, solar and wind, export-oriented sectors such as call centers, electronics, aeronautics, automotive parts, and textile manufacturing. Trade opportunities and best prospects for U.S. exports: telecommunications, equipment and services, commodities, electrical power systems, aircraft, airport, ground support, automotive parts, services and equipment, architecture, construction and engineering services, medical products and equipment, pollution control equipment, franchises. This is what I can give you in this short time. I hope that you have enough time to ask some questions. We are so sorry, we have just a short time. And thank you.
Yeah, it's a great video too. I wish you had time to watch the video.
Yes.
so-
I hope that they showed the video, but I don't know if
Yeah.
you have time.
We'll have to figure out a way to watch the video. I know that some
Yeah.
of the students have classes, that's part of the problem, but there are others who can stay around. And you're welcome to come on up and talk to any one of the panelists you want to, ask them questions about anything, either related to business opportunities or just other questions you may have, political or economic, that relate to the region. And I know you have very broad interest in the group right here. Does that sound okay, Kurt?
That sounds great.
Okay, great. Now let's give everybody a hand, and we thank you for coming.